Hello everybody. In recent episodes we've been considering the New Zealand and South Seas International Exhibition of 1925-26. And let's start there again for today's story too. The exhibition ran from the 17th of November 1925 until the 1st of May 1926. So it was in full swing over the 1925-26 Christmas and New Year holiday period. Unsurprisingly, the Otago Witness Christmas Annual for 1925 featured an illustration of the exhibition's grand dome on its front cover, and another illustration of it in an advertisement for Begg's music store on the back cover. The illustrations were the work of renowned Dunedin lithographer Peter McIntyre, who produced quite a few covers for the Otago Daily Times and Witness annuals from the early 1900s up until his death in 1932. Robert Hawkridge was another celebrated Dunedin lithographer who drew some earlier cover illustrations for the Otago Daily Times and Witness Christmas Annual, including this one featuring a Maori family baking their Christmas pudding over a geothermal pool for the 1898 edition. And this one in 1905 contrasting a traditional winter Christmas in Scotland with a summer one in the Edinburgh of the South. The 1893 Christmas edition of the New Zealand Graphic and Ladies' Journal also had a Hawkridge illustration on its cover, which appears to include a hybrid of Father Time and the Grim Reaper grabbing a goose by the leg, presumably in order to produce the traditional Christmas goose pie. He also produced this picture for tea company Nelson Moat & Co.'s advertisement on the back cover, and provided some of the illustrations for stories inside the annual too. Hawkridge again drew the picture on the cover of the New Zealand Graphic's 1895 Christmas number. This time the illustration featured a hot and bothered Father Christmas with geese in tow, making his deliveries in a country where the climate was warmer than he was used to. In 1882, local sign writer, glass embosser and painter and decorator Nathaniel Levis painted this watercolour of the Great Comet, which was first spotted in Earth's skies in September 1882 and despite breaking into several fragments, remained visible to the naked eye until February 1883. The painting shows the comet above Otago Peninsula and is painted from West Harbour, where the Levises lived. Now, Nathaniel Levis was one of many people at this time who was questioning why we weren't making Christmas cards here, ones with New Zealand scenes instead of ones with traditional winter Christmas scenes which were imported from the opposite side of the world, only to be posted all the way back there with season's greetings for friends and family back home. So Levis used paintings of the Great Comet, Mount Earnslaw and Purakanui as the basis for producing an early New Zealand Christmas card, which had explanations to accompany the illustrations and lines of Christmas verse by local poet John Barr printed on the back as well. Nathaniel Levis had come to Dunedin in the mid-1870s after 13 years as a decorator in London. Over the following decade, he was in business in various locations around Dunedin, on his own account or in partnership firstly with Archibald Charles Franklin as Levis and Franklin and later with David Scott as Levis and Scott. As well as signwriting, glass embossing, painting and decorating, and selling painting and decorating supplies, the business also became known for producing artwork for illuminated addresses, life-size portraits in crayon that were scaled up from carte de visite photographs, and so on. Following the inauguration of the city's tramways in 1879, Levis and Scott became agents for advertising signs on Dunedin's tramcars too. They displayed their wares here at the Sydney International Exhibition of 1879, where Nathaniel Levis also exhibited some of his watercolours of New Zealand scenery, alongside established Dunedin artists John Charles Hoyt and Peter Power. At the same time, he was on the selection committee arranging local exhibits for inclusion in the 1880 Melbourne International Exhibition. Examples of glass embossing by two of his apprentices, Forbes Angus and Joseph Bentley, were amongst the items chosen for the Melbourne display. Further examples of glass embossing by Levis and Scott were on show at the Dunedin Industrial Exhibition in 1881, while more of Levis's scenic watercolours were on show in the exhibition's picture galleries. Examples of Nathaniel Levis's work could also be found on and in prominent local buildings. When the Freemasons moved into the former Jewish synagogue in 1881, fittings in the new hall included emblems of the craft that he had painted on glass. And in 1883, new Master of Lodge Celtic Joseph Baxter presented the Freemasons of Dunedin with these two pillars, designed by prominent Dunedin architect R.A. Lawson, that were again decorated by Nathaniel Levis. Levis also executed the glass embossing for one of the city's finest buildings, the Grand Hotel at the foot of High Street, in 1883. In 1884, he took over the photography studio of William Frost, who'd been one of the publishers of his 1882 Great Comet Christmas card. And in 1885, he issued a new Christmas card. The Great Comet, Mount Earnslaw and Purakanui was swapped for an illustration of Lake Wanaka, and John Barr's Christmas verse gave way to the words of Vincent Pike's patriotic song, The Old Flag. And the music for the song was printed on the back. Shortly after releasing the card, however, the Levises, Nathaniel, his wife Charlotte, who he'd married here in 1877, and their two daughters, moved to Australia. Nathaniel Levis died in Melbourne just a few years later in 1890, aged in his early 40s. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there for today. Merry Christmas, everyone. See you next time, and thanks for watching.